When chaos hits and doubt creeps in, what truly keeps you grounded? It's not luck or circumstance. It's the inner strength to stay calm and confident under pressure. That quiet force shapes your decisions, reactions, and ultimately your success. In a world that challenges you daily, cultivating a resilient mindset isn't optional, it's essential. Tap into the power within and learn how calm thinking can become your greatest advantage. In any storm, in a few moments, I'll teach you why your mindset is everything and how to stay calm and confident. The power of definite purpose. You are not here to drift like a leaf blown by the wind. You are a builder of your own future, a craftsman shaping a destiny by the blows of your own hammer. But how often do you ask yourself, what am I really aiming at? What am I willing to stake my life on? When your life lacks a clear direction, you're like a man walking into a forest without knowing what he's hunting. Each day becomes a repetition of the last. The energy is there, but without aim it scatters like light through a dirty window. Once you take hold of a purpose so definite it feels etched into your bones, something changes. You no longer wake up and wonder what the day will bring. You decide what it will bring. So, when you focus your thoughts around one meaningful goal, your decisions align. Your energy becomes a blazing fire rather than scattered sparks. Imagine you're standing in a wide field with a bow in hand. You draw back the string and let the arrow fly, but there's no target. Would you do that? So why go day after day without setting a clear, burning purpose? Ask yourself now, what are you willing to dedicate your time, your breath, your sweat toward? What would make the hours feel like a price worth paying? You don't need 100 answers, just one that matters deeply. Your definite purpose is not a fantasy, it's a decision. And the moment you decide, the fog begins to clear. The world stops feeling random. You begin to walk with direction, and with direction comes confidence. Purpose makes you powerful because it means you're no longer waiting, you're moving. Belief is the foundation of achievement. You are more capable than you've dared to believe. Every man or woman who ever built something great began with nothing more than a spark of belief that they could. But what happens when you let doubt steer the ship? You stall, you second guess, you wait for a perfect moment that never comes. You look around for someone to give you permission to start. Yet those who achieve, those who build something from scratch, they don't wait for the world to believe in them. They believe first, and the world eventually follows. When belief is strong, it becomes like steel beneath your feet. You walk forward, not because there's no fear, but because belief whispers that you're equipped to handle what comes. You meet setbacks, not as signs to stop, but signals to adjust. You stop seeing failure as final and instead view it as fuel. Picture a farmer planting seed in barren soil. He does not know if the rains will come. He does not know if the sun will rise each day. But he plants, waters, and waits. Why? Because he believes in the harvest. Are you planting your goals without belief? Or are you holding the seeds in your hand, too afraid they'll never grow? The world will not hand you guarantees, but it will mirror back what you deeply believe to be true about yourself. If you see yourself as strong, persistent, creative, you will act that way, and those actions build real results. Don't wait for confidence to come after success. You must live like the man or woman you intend to become. Now, belief must walk ahead of achievement, leading it by the hand. Believe and the door opens. Discipline over desire. You already know what needs to be done. The hard part is doing it when you don't feel like it. That's where most folks turn back. They give their power to mood, to comfort, to the easy road. But you, if you want to win, you must choose discipline. Desire is a guest that's often late. You can't rely on it to carry you. But discipline, that's the mule that pulls your wagon through mud and snow. A man who lives by discipline is a man who cannot be defeated easily. Because whether the skies are gray or golden, he shows up. Whether the task is thrilling or tedious, he executes. That's real freedom. Not doing whatever you want, but doing what's necessary, no matter how you feel. Imagine a blacksmith forging a blade. He cannot skip a step. He must heat the metal, hammer it, fold it, and do it again. He cannot say, "I don't feel like shaping steel today," because without the process, the blade is weak. Are you shaping your life like that? Are you consistent, even when it's dull or painful? Or do you only act when the mood is right? Discipline means doing what needs to be done, even when the fire's gone cold. It means making a decision once, and then honoring it daily without negotiation. That's how great work is built. That's how character is formed. That's how confidence grows. Not from passion, but from persistence. The truth is, discipline doesn't limit you. It liberates you. It hands you the power to decide, to move, to succeed on your terms. The value of persistence through adversity. Every man meets resistance. That is life's way of asking, "Do you really want this?" And your answer is given not in words, but in whether or not you keep going. The question comes disguised in 1,000 forms. It arrives as the rejection letter that lands in your inbox after months of hope. It appears as the friend who turns away when you need them most. It whispers through the voices of critics who mock your dreams and the inner voice that questions your worth. Life doesn't ask this question once. It asks it repeatedly, relentlessly, until you either prove your commitment or surrender your vision. You might face delays, disappointment, betrayal, even ridicule, but if your vision is clear and your desire is real, you will outlast them. You will move through storm after storm with a quiet fire inside. This fire isn't the dramatic blaze of initial enthusiasm that burns bright and fast. It's the steady ember that glows in darkness, the warmth that sustains you when everything else grows cold. Too many give up after one setback. They interpret difficulty as defeat, but adversity is not a signal to stop. It's a mirror. It reflects the depths of your determination. When you face resistance, you're not being punished or singled out for suffering. You're being tested. The universe is checking your credentials, examining whether you possess the fortitude to handle what you're asking for. Think of a river cutting through rock. It doesn't stop because the stone is hard. It persists, drop by drop, year after year, and in time it carves canyons. That is the power of steady, unrelenting action. The river doesn't rage against the rock or curse its hardness. It simply continues its work, patient and persistent, until the impossible becomes inevitable. Imagine building something with your hands. Sweat, dripping, muscles aching, day after day. Others pass by, shake their heads and say, "Why are you wasting your time?" But you see something they don't, a vision. And if you hold on, eventually they see it too. The cathedral builder works stone by stone, knowing he may never see the finished spire. The entrepreneur fails and rebuilds, driven by a future only he can imagine. The artist creates in solitude, painting dreams that others will one day call masterpieces. What are you building that's worth this struggle? What would you regret walking away from? These questions cut to the core of purpose, to the difference between mere wanting and true calling. When you find something worth persistent effort, You discover that resistance becomes fuel rather than obstacle. Adversity isn't your enemy, it's your instructor. It teaches you endurance when comfort would make you soft. It teaches you creativity when the easy path disappears. It teaches you strength when weakness would be simpler, but only if you stay in the room long enough to learn. Only if you choose to see setbacks as curriculum rather than condemnation. Keep showing up. Keep trying, even if the pace is slow, because persistence turns dreams into reality, stone into monuments, and you from ordinary to unstoppable. Fear is a servant, not a master. You felt it before. Tight chest, racing thoughts, second-guessing everything you once believed you could do. That familiar weight settles in your stomach like a stone, and suddenly the world feels too big, too dangerous, too uncertain. Your hands might shake slightly, your breathing becomes shallow, and every instinct screams at you to retreat to find safety in the familiar corners of your comfort zone. That's fear, and it will visit you often, sometimes arriving unannounced like an unwelcome guest who overstays their welcome. But what matters is not whether it arrives because will, as shortly as the sun rises each morning. It's whether you let it stay. Fear has a way of making itself comfortable in your mind, spreading its belongings across every surface of your consciousness until it feels like a permanent resident. It whispers stories about all the things that could go wrong, paints vivid pictures of failure and embarrassment, and slowly convinces you that staying small is the only sensible choice. Fear was never meant to be your master, though it often tries to assume that role. It's a signal, nothing more and nothing less. An alarm bell that sounds when you're approaching something significant, something that has the power to change you. A servant telling you this matters. When you understand this fundamental truth, fear begins to lose its grip on you. Instead of being paralyzed by its presence, you can learn to interpret its message and respond accordingly. The strongest people you know aren't fearless. That's a myth we tell ourselves about heroes and leaders. They simply know how to use their fear as fuel rather than letting it become a wall. They examine it like a curious scientist studying a specimen, asking questions instead of accepting its pronouncements as truth. They talk back to it, challenging its assumptions and demanding evidence for its claims. Most importantly, they move anyway, carrying their fear with them like a traveling companion rather than treating it as an immovable obstacle. Think of a man standing before a great river. Its water is stretching endlessly toward the horizon. The current is strong, the depths unknown, and the other side seems impossibly far away. The water is cold enough to steal your breath, wide enough to swallow your courage, and mysterious enough to house 1,000 imagined dangers. Fear says, stay here where it's safe. You know this ground beneath your feet. You understand the rules of this side. But courage says something different entirely. Swim and see what's on the other side. What river are you standing before right now? What idea, action, or change are you delaying because fear has told you stories that aren't true? Perhaps it's the business you want to start, the relationship you want to pursue, the creative project that keeps calling to you in quiet moments. Maybe it's a conversation you need to have, a boundary you need to set, or a dream you've been carrying for years but never dared to pursue. Fear tells you you're not ready, that you need more preparation, more certainty, more guarantees. It insists you'll fail spectacularly, that others will judge you harshly, that the risk is too great for the potential reward. But none of that is written in stone. You decide the outcome through your choices, your persistence, and your willingness to learn from whatever happens. Use fear as your compass, not your cage. Let it point you toward what matters most in your life. Where the fear is strongest, there too is your greatest potential for growth, for impact, for becoming who you're meant to be. The things that scare you most are often the things that will transform you most. Completely. You don't need to erase fear. That's neither possible nor desirable. You need to stop bowing to it. Stop treating it as the ultimate authority on what you should or shouldn't do. Fear isn't your enemy. It's your test, your chance to prove to yourself that you're capable of more than you imagined. Character over reputation. There will always be whispers in the coffee shops downtown, at the church social after Sunday service, across the back fence while hanging laundry on the line. People who misunderstand you, who look at your choices through the lens of their own limited experience. They'll misjudge your motives, creating stories about why you do what you do, based on gossip passed from neighbor to neighbor, like a game of telephone. Some will praise you too highly, putting you on a pedestal you never asked to climb, while others will tear you down unfairly, finding fault where none exists, simply because it makes them feel better about their own shortcomings. But you must decide, here and now, what will guide your steps through this life. Will you chase reputation or build character? This choice will shape every decision you make, every relationship you form, every moment when you stand at the crossroads between what's easy and what's right. Reputation is what others think of you, a collection of opinions, assumptions, and half-truths that shift like sand in the wind. It's built on appearances, on the stories people tell about you at dinner parties and community meetings. Character, however, is who you are when no one is watching, when there's no audience to impress, no cameras rolling, no one keeping score. It's the person you become in the quiet moments of your life, when you're alone, with your conscience and your choices. One fades like yesterday's newspaper headlines, the other lasts like the foundation stones of a well-built house, growing stronger with time and weathering every storm. If you let your worth rise and fall with public opinion, you'll become like a weather vane on the old Miller farm, spinning endlessly with every change in the wind, never rooted, never steady, never truly knowing which direction you're meant to face. You'll find yourself constantly adjusting your behavior based on who's watching, saying different things to different people, becoming a chameleon who changes colors so often that you forget your true hue. But when your decisions come from your values, not from the promise of applause or the fear of criticism, you find something precious and rare: peace. Not the temporary satisfaction of being liked, but the deep abiding peace that comes from knowing you've been true to self and to what you believe is right. Think of the great oak tree that stands in the town square, the one that's weathered decades of storms and seasons. Above ground, it may look impressive with its broad trunk and spreading branches that provide shade for summer picnics and shelter for winter birds. But its real strength lies in what you cannot see: the roots that dig deep into the earth, unseen by passers, by steady and sure, drawing nourishment from sources that never run dry. Are your choices guided by what's right, or merely by what looks right to the crowd? This question will test you repeatedly, sometimes in small ways, sometimes in moments that will define the rest of your life. You'll be tempted to impress, to embellish your stories around the dinner table, to make yourself seem more important or successful than you feel. You'll be tempted to take the easy path because it wins faster approval, to go along with popular opinion, even when it goes against your better judgment. But hold firm to what you know to be true and good. Do the work when no one's watching. The small acts of kindness, the honest labor, the quiet discipline that shapes your character like water shaped stone. Keep your word, even when it costs you something, even when breaking it would be more convenient. There stand by your principles, especially when they require sacrifice. When doing right means walking away from something you want or facing criticism from people whose approval you value. Reputation may open doors, getting you invited to the right parties or considered for certain opportunities. But character is what keeps those doors open, what sustains relationships and builds trust that lasts through good times and bad. And in the quiet moments, late at night, when the house is still and you're alone with your thoughts, you'll know who you truly are. That peace, that integrity, that unshakable sense of your own worth, that's something no crowd can give you or take away. Your energy is sacred. Guard it. You are not a machine. You cannot give endlessly without cost. No matter how much the world expects it of you, or how much you expect it of yourself, your energy, your mental, physical, and emotional strength is sacred. It's the wellspring from which everything else flows. Your decisions, your ideas, your focus, your joy, your ability to love and create and contribute to the world around you. This energy is not an endless resource that we often treat it as if it were. We pour it out carelessly, spending it on things that don't matter, people who don't deserve it, and situations that drain us without giving anything meaningful in return. When you treat your energy like it's limitless, you inevitably burn out. The warning signs are there long before the collapse. The irritability that creeps in, the tasks that feel insurmountable, the joy that gradually fades from activities you once loved. When you give your energy away freely to every argument that doesn't change anything, every complaint that solves nothing, every task that adds no value to your life or anyone else's, you arrive at the end of each day, feeling hollow, empty, wondering where the time went, why you feel so drained, and how you managed to be so busy while accomplishing so little that truly mattered. You must learn to protect your energy the way a farmer guards water during a drought. Every drop becomes precious when scarcity reveals its true value. The farmer doesn't waste water on weeds that will die anyway. He channels it carefully toward the crops that will sustain life. Your energy deserves the same thoughtful stewardship. Ask yourself these essential questions and answer them honestly. Who gets your best hours? Are you giving your peak energy to your most important work? Or are you squandering it on trivial matters and then wondering why you feel depleted when it's time to focus on what truly counts? What drains you unnecessarily? Which conversations, commitments, and mental habits are quietly stealing your vitality without offering anything worthwhile in return? What restores you? What activities, relationships, and environments actually replenish your energy instead of depleting it? There's genuine power in choosing not to respond to every insult, in recognizing that some battles aren't worth fighting because they cost more than they could ever give back. There's wisdom and walking away from draining conversations that go nowhere, in saying no without guilt when requests don't align with your values or goals, in resting when rest is needed, rather than pushing through exhaustion out of misplaced pride. Picture a man walking up a mountain, carrying a heavy pack on his shoulders. The summit is his destination, and the journey demands everything he has. If he fills his pack with stones that aren't his to carry, other people's problems, unnecessary worries, obligations that serve no real purpose, he won't make it far before collapsing under the weight. The wise traveler carries only what belongs to him, what serves his journey, what helps him reach his destination. You carry your own weight in this life, and that's enough. That's more than enough. What have you been carrying that doesn't belong to you? What emotional baggage? What other people's expectations? What outdated beliefs about who you should be or what you should do? These invisible burdens weigh you down more than any physical load ever could. Protect your energy, not because you're fragile, you're stronger than you know, but because your mission requires clarity and strength. The work you're called to do, the relationships that matter most, the contributions you want to make to the world, all of these require your best self, not whatever's left over after you've given everything away. Save your best for what matters most. Stop spending your prime energy on secondary concerns while your primary purposes go unfunded. You have a fire within you, a unique flame that burns with your particular combination of passion, purpose, and potential. Don't let it flicker and dim because you kept fueling things that never lit you up in the first place. Guard that fire, feed it wisely, let it burn bright for the things that truly matter. Success is a habit, not a stroke of luck. Many believe success arrives like lightning, sudden, loud, random, striking without warning, and a brilliant flash that transforms everything in an instant. They wait for that moment of inspiration, that breakthrough idea, that stroke of luck that will change their lives forever. But real success doesn't flash dramatically across the sky. It builds quietly, daily through the unglamorous, often invisible work of habit. Success is not an event, but a process, not a destination, but a journey of small steps taken consistently over time. It's built in the early morning hours when the world is still sleeping, in the late evening moments when others have given up for the day in the 2024, countless ordinary minutes when no one is watching and no one is cheering. You don't rise by accident. You don't stumble into achievement or fall backward into excellence. You rise by routine, by the small, deliberate actions that you repeat, even when the initial thrill is gone, even when motivation has abandoned you, even when the work feels monotonous and the results seem invisible. The successful person wakes before the world expects him to, not because he enjoys the early hour, but because he understands that success is claimed in the margins of life, in the time most people surrender to sleep or comfort. He plans while others react, writes while others consume, moves while others remain stationary, works while others wait for the perfect moment. He does this not because he's lucky. Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity, but because he's disciplined. What are your daily habits? This question cuts to the heart of who you're becoming. Do your habits lift you toward your goals, or do they lull you into complacency? Are you building the foundation for the life you want, or are you unconsciously constructing barriers to your own success? Picture two people starting from the same place in life. One commits to reading for 15 minutes each day, choosing books that challenge his thinking and expand his understanding. A week passes, and there's no visible difference between them. A month goes by, and still they seem to be in the same place. But a year later something is shifted. A decade passes, and the gap has become a chasm. One has built wisdom, knowledge, and perspective that inform every decision he makes. The other has built nothing but regret and the haunting sense of time wasted. Your results are the fruit of your habits, not your wishes. You can dream all you want, set goals with great enthusiasm, and make resolutions with sincere intentions, but none of that matters if your daily actions don't align with your aspirations. The person who wishes to be a writer but never writes will remain a dreamer. The person who wants to be healthy but never exercises will remain weak. The person who longs for wisdom but never learns will remain ignorant. You don't have to do everything at once. That's the beauty and the power of habits. They don't require massive effort or dramatic change, but you must do something every day. It compounds like interest in a savings account, growing slowly at first, then accelerating as time passes. It builds the future long before it shows, creating momentum that becomes unstoppable. Decide now, what one habit could you commit to that moves you forward? Add these habits, not a complete life overhaul, but one simple, sustainable action that you can repeat daily. Then protect it like treasure. Guard it against the forces it would steal it away. Laziness, distraction, the voice that says it doesn't matter because that habit, it's your edge, your secret, your power. Over time, habits become identity. The person who runs every day becomes a runner. The person who writes every day becomes a writer. The person who learns every day becomes wise. Identity becomes results, and results, over the long arc of a life, become legacy. Stillness is where wisdom gathers in a world that pushes you to always be doing, chasing, running toward the next goal, the next achievement, the next distraction. Stillness feels almost unnatural. We've been conditioned to believe that movement equals progress, that constant activity signals importance, that being busy is the same as being productive. But that's precisely where clarity is born, in the quiet spaces between the noise, in the moments when we stop long enough to remember who we are beneath all the doing. When you slow down, not out of laziness or procrastination, but out of deliberate intention, you begin to see. The world comes into sharper focus. You notice what truly matters and what you've been mistaking for importance. You hear your own voice again, that inner wisdom that gets drowned out by the constant chatter of obligations and expectations. You develop the ability to discern the signal from the noise, to separate what's essential from what's merely urgent. This isn't about becoming passive or disengaged. A calm mind isn't empty. It's sharp, focused, resilient. It's the difference between reacting impulsively to every stimulus and responding thoughtfully to what actually requires your attention. It's the difference between panic and poise, between being driven by circumstances and being guided by purpose. Imagine walking through a field shrouded in thick fog, where visibility is limited and every step feels uncertain. If you run too fast, desperate to reach your destination, you stumble over obstacles you can't see, veer off course, and exhaust yourself fighting shadows. But when you pause, when you allow your vision to adjust to the conditions, something remarkable happens. The fog doesn't disappear, but you learn to navigate it. You find the path that was there all along, hidden beneath the haste and anxiety. When was the last time you truly paused? Not the brief intermission between tasks, not the distracted moments thumbing through a magazine, but real stillness when you sat in quiet and asked yourself the questions that matter. Is this the direction I want my life to take? Is this how I want to spend my days? Am I living according to my values? Or am I simply responding to whatever demands the most attention? Stillness is not wasted time, though our culture would have you believe otherwise. It's gathering time. It's the sharpening of your axe before you attempt to cut through the wood of your challenges. The woodcutter who takes time to sharpen his blade will accomplish more and less time than the one who hacks away frantically with a dull tool. The same principle applies to your mind. your decisions, your entire approach to life. The world will tempt you to stay busy, to fill every moment with activity, to mistake motion for progress. Television advertisements will show you people who seem to be constantly achieving, constantly moving, constantly doing something impressive. Newspapers will fill your mind with urgent matters that demand immediate attention. But you must remember, motion isn't progress. A hamster on a wheel moves constantly, but goes nowhere. Noise isn't wisdom. The loudest voice at the town meeting isn't necessarily the wisest. Hurry isn't power. True power comes from knowing when to act and when to wait, when to push forward and when to step back. Create space in your life for stillness. Take walks without destinations, where your only goal is to move your body and clear your mind. Write your thoughts in a journal, not to publish or share, but to clarify what you're thinking and feeling. Sit with silence, even when it feels uncomfortable, even when your mind wants to fill it with worries about tomorrow or regrets about yesterday. Let your inner voice rise above the crowd in a world full of opinions, advice, and expectations. You need to remember what you actually think, what you actually want, what you actually believe. This voice can only be heard in the quiet moments, when you're not performing for others or trying to meet someone else's standards, because in the stillness, you don't just hear yourself better, you become yourself better. You remember who you are beneath all the roles you play and all the expectations you carry. You reconnect with your core values, your deepest desire, your truest self. Vision without work is just a dream. You may have a picture in your mind of the life you want, the person you could become, the legacy you'd like to leave behind when your time on this earth is done. That's vision, and it's powerful. It's what pulls you forward when everything else seems to push you back. It's what gives meaning to your struggles and purpose to your pain. But without work, without the daily grind of turning dreams into reality, vision becomes nothing more than a fantasy, a beautiful mirage that retreats every time you think you're getting closer. There are many who dream in this world. Walk into any coffee shop, any bar, any gathering of friends, and you'll hear them, people talking about what they're going to do, who they're going to become, how they're going to change their lives. They speak with passion and conviction, their eyes bright with possibility, but fewer actually do. The difference between the dreamers and the achievers isn't talent, isn't luck, isn't even opportunity. The difference is sweat, effort, repetition, the willingness to show up day after day, even when the work is hard and the progress is slow. A vision is like a blueprint that an architect draws up for a magnificent building. Every detail is carefully planned. The soaring ceilings, the elegant columns, the way the light will filter through the windows. It's beautiful on paper, inspiring to look at, easy to admire, but without bricks, without mortar, without the back-breaking labor of construction, it remains just that, paper. The structure never rises. The building exists only in the imagination of its creator. What are you building today that your future self will thank you for? What effort are you putting in right now to make your vision real? Not someday when conditions are perfect. Not next year when you have more time. Not when you feel more motivated. But now, what small but significant step can you take today that moves you closer to the life you've imagined? Imagine a man standing at the edge of an empty plot of land, staring at the bare earth and talking endlessly about the mansion he'll build there. He describes every room in vivid detail, tells everyone who will listen about the grand staircase, the marble floors, the gardens that will bloom in spring. His vision is clear. His passion is real. His plans are elaborate, but year after year passes and there's no shovel in his hand, no fondation pour, no stone laid, just words carried away on the wind. Is that what you're doing with your goals? Are you the person who talks about writing a book, but never writes a page? Who dreams of starting a business, but never takes the first step? Who imagines getting in shape, but never laces up the running shoes? Are you living in the comfortable space of potential, where everything is possible because nothing has been tested against reality? It's not enough to imagine, no matter how vivid your imagination or how noble your intention. You must move every day, even when you're tired from the demands of life, even when progress feels impossibly slow, even when doubt creeps in and whispers that your dreams are too big, too ambitious, too unlikely, because vision with action is a force that can move mountains, change lives, and transform the world. But vision without action is a ghost, ethereal, insubstantial, ultimately powerless. You don't have to get it all right today. Perfection isn't the standard, and you don't need to have all the answers before you begin. But you do have to get to work. You have to pick up the tools, roll up your sleeves, and start building something real. Otherwise, you'll spend your years dreaming in beautiful colors, while watching someone else build what you only talked about. The tragedy isn't in failing to achieve your vision, it's in failing to try. The real heartbreak comes not from falling short of your dreams, but from never taking the first step toward making them real. Confidence comes from preparation. You want to feel calm when pressure comes. You want to speak with strength, walk with certainty, act without hesitation. But that kind of confidence doesn't appear from nowhere. It comes from preparation done quietly, consistently in the shadows. There's a particular stillness that comes over a man who has prepared. While others fidget and second-guess themselves, he sits with a calm that runs deeper than surface composure. This isn't the manufactured confidence of someone pretending to be ready. This is the quiet assurance of someone who has already fought the battle in his mind, practiced the movements in his body, and rehearsed the responses in his heart. A man who prepares is never caught off guard. He might not control the outcome, but he has control over himself. And in this world, that's power. Real power isn't the ability to dominate others or bend circumstances to your will. It's the capacity to remain centered when everything around you is chaos, to respond rather than react, to choose your actions instead of being driven by impulse or fear. Confidence built on charm is fragile. It crumbles the moment someone doesn't laugh at your jokes or validate your presence. Confidence built on appearance fades when you're not the best dressed person in the room. But confidence built on readiness? That's unshakable. You walk into a challenge not wondering if you'll survive, but knowing you've done the work. You've anticipated the questions, practiced the skills, and prepared for the variables that might arise. Think of a soldier sharpening his blade before battle. He does not wait until danger arrives. He prepares. In the quiet hours before dawn, he tends to his equipment, studies his maps, and runs through scenarios in his mind. He knows that, when the moment comes, there will be no time for second thoughts or last-minute preparations. In the same way, you prepare by studying when others are sleeping, by practicing when others are playing, by rehearsing when others are relaxing. You fail in private, so you can succeed in public. This preparation isn't glamorous work. It happens in empty rooms and quiet moments. It's the writer crafting sentences at 4 in the morning, the entrepreneur studying market trends on weekends, the athlete running when his body begs for rest. It's the 1,000 small acts of discipline that no one sees, but everyone eventually benefits from. What are you doing today that's quietly preparing you for what you say you want? Are you reading the books that will expand your mind? Are you practicing the skills that will serve your ambitions? Are you building the habits that will sustain you under pressure? Or are you waiting for readiness to arrive like a gift from the universe? Don't wish for confidence. Earn it. Don't wish for peace. Create it. It begins with deliberate effort, each day laying brick upon brick. Some days the work feels pointless, the progress invisible, but you continue anyway, trusting that preparation is an investment that always pays dividends, even if you can't see the returns immediately. And when the moment arrives, when the interview comes, when the opportunity knocks, when the choice must be made, you won't panic. You'll perform, because you didn't wait to be ready. You made yourself ready. In that moment, all the quiet hours of preparation will speak louder than any words you could say. Self-control is inner power. You can't lead your life if you can't lead yourself. The moment you hand your emotions or reins, you lose direction. You snap in anger, drown in doubt, spiral in fear. Why? Because you've forgotten that you are the one who gets to steer. The illusion of powerlessness is seductive. It whispers that your emotions are natural forces beyond your control. That anger is justified. That fear is protective. That impulse is honest. But this is a lie that keeps you small. Your emotions are not your master. They are information. They tell you something is happening, but they don't get to decide what you do about it. Self-control is your strongest defense against the chaos of the world. It's not about being cold or distant. It's about staying steady, calm, clear. When the world shouts, you listen. When panic rises, you breathe. When temptation knocks, you remember your values. This isn't suppression or denial. It's sovereignty. It's the recognition that between stimulus and response lies a space, and in that space lives your power to choose. A man without self-control is like a horse without reins, strong but wild. He'll bolt at every sudden noise, wear himself out, and crash before reaching any destination. His strength becomes his weakness because it lacks direction. He might be capable of great things, but he'll never achieve them because he can't harness his own power. He reacts to everything and responds to nothing, driven by whatever emotion happens to be strongest in the moment. Now think, how many decisions have you made because you were too angry, too tired, too tempted? Did they serve you, or did they only lead you back to regret? The purchase made in weakness that emptied your savings, the words spoken in hurt that can never be taken back. These moments reveal the true cost of emotional leadership. It's expensive, and the price is always paid in the future. Every time you resist a harmful urge, every time you respond instead of react, you strengthen a muscle more important than any other, your will. This muscle grows not through grand gestures, but through small acts of resistance. It's strengthened when you choose the difficult conversation over comfortable silence, when you stay present with discomfort instead of reaching for discomfort, when you pause before speaking words that want to escape in heat. What if you could pause before speaking in frustration? What if you could sit with discomfort instead of running from it? These aren't impossible dreams. They're practical skills that can be developed. The pause between feeling and action can be expanded. The space between trigger and response can be widened, but it requires practice. The same way building physical strength requires consistent effort. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to practice with each small act of self-control. You build strength, quietly, gradually, until the storms of life come and you, unshaken, remain centered. Others may lose their heads, but you keep yours. Others may be swept away by the current, but you remain anchored. This is not because you don't feel the storm. It's because you've learned to stand steady within it. Self-control is not the absence of emotion. It's the presence of choice, and choice exercised consistently becomes character. Character, tested by time, becomes destiny. Thought is the seed of all action. Before a man acts, he first thinks. And before he thinks, he first believes something about the world and about himself. Your thoughts are the soil. If you plant weeds, don't expect to harvest wheat. This is the forgotten foundation of transformation. Most men focus on changing their circumstances, their relationships, their outcomes, but they ignore the source from which all these things flow. They tend to everything except the garden of their own mind, wondering why their efforts bear bitter fruit or no fruit at all. Every result you see in your life, your habits, your surroundings, your opportunities, sprouted from a single thought. Maybe a thought of fear, maybe a thought of courage, but everything started there. The man who thinks I always mess things up unconsciously sabotages his own efforts. The man who thinks I can learn anything approaches challenges with curiosity instead of dread. Both thoughts require the same mental energy, but they create entirely different worlds. When you neglect the quality of your thinking, you invite chaos. Your mind becomes a wild garden where every seed that blows in takes root out. Gross besidder determination, fear crowds out faith, self-criticism chokes gratitude. But when you choose your thoughts like a farmer chooses seed, carefully and with purpose, you begin to harvest a life of your choosing. The process isn't mystical, it's agricultural. A farmer doesn't plant corn by accident and then act surprised when corn grows. He selects his seeds. They earn it through the quiet consistency of their character. A humble person listens more than he speaks. He learns from all because he does not pretend to know everything. He works harder because he does not assume he deserves success, and he grows faster because he admits when he's wrong. This isn't self-diminishment, it's strategic wisdom. The humble person understands that every interaction is a chance to gain knowledge. Every mistake is a lesson, and every moment of not knowing is an opportunity to discover something new. You've seen men puff their chests, talk over others, try to win every room with noise. They interrupt conversations to insert their opinions. They name drop to establish credibility. They speak with certainty about things they barely understand. But deep down, you know that noise isn't strength. It's insecurity dressed up in ego. The loudest person in the room is often the most afraid of being ignored, the most desperate to prove their relevance. Now picture the opposite. A quiet man at work before dawn, putting in hours while others boast. He doesn't need to say what he's building. His results will say it for him. He asks questions without shame because he values learning over appearing smart. He gives credit to others because he knows success is rarely a solo achievement. He admits his mistakes quickly because he'd rather solve problems than protect his image. Are you open to correction? Can you learn from someone younger than you or less experienced? Do you ask questions without shame? These questions reveal the difference between false humility and genuine wisdom. False humility says, "I'm nothing." True humility says, "I'm always learning." False humility diminishes itself to gain sympathy. True humility positions itself to gain knowledge. Humility allows you to grow because it makes you teachable. It protects you from the arrogance that blinds men just before they fall. Pride creates blind spots, areas where a man stops looking, stops questioning, stops improving. Humility keeps the eyes open and the mind flexible. It recognizes that today's expertise might be tomorrow's limitation, that the person you dismiss might hold the key to your next breakthrough. The humble person doesn't underestimate themselves. They accurately assess themselves. They know their strengths without needing to broadcast them. They acknowledge their weaknesses without being paralyzed by them. They understand that confidence and humility aren't opposites, but partners, each making the others stronger. It is not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking clearly about yourself. You are always becoming, and those who remember that walk straighter last longer and rise farther. They walk straighter because they have nothing to prove and everything to learn. They last longer because they adapt instead of resist. They rise farther because they lift others as they climb, creating a network of support that carries them higher than any individual effort could achieve. In a world full of noise, humility is the quiet strength that endures. Courage is the price of progress. Nothing moves forward without courage. Not a business, not a dream, not a man. Courage is not loud. It's not reckless. It's a quiet decision that says, I will do this even if I'm scared. The mythology of courage has confused us. We picture heroes charging into battle, delivering stirring speeches, making grand gestures that inspire multitudes, but real courage is far more intimate. It's the entrepreneur who quits his safe job to pursue an uncertain vision. It's the father who has the difficult conversation with his son. It's the man who chooses honesty when a lie would be easier. These moments happen in ordinary rooms, witnessed by no one, remembered by few, but they shape everything that follows. There will be moments where you feel frozen, where the cost of trying feels too high, where doubt sings louder than your reason. And in those moments, you must choose. The feeling of being frozen is familiar to every man who has ever attempted something meaningful. It's the paralysis that comes when possibility meets risk, when desire confronts uncertainty. Your mind will generate 1,000 reasons to wait to gather more information, to seek more preparation. But beneath all these reasonable delays lies a simple truth. You're scared. Will you step forward or stay behind? This is the question that defines trajectories. Not the big dramatic moments we imagine, but the small, private decisions we make when no one is watching. Progress does not reward comfort. It rewards boldness. It rewards the man who takes the step, not because the path is certain, but because the goal is worth the risk. The world is designed to support those who move, who act, who try. Opportunities rarely come to the hesitant. They gravitate toward those who demonstrate they're willing to do something with them. Think of the first time you did something hard. Your hands may have trembled, your heart raised, but you did it. And what happened next? You changed. You saw yourself differently. You grew. That moment of action, this bit of fear, created a new version of yourself. The man who took the step was not the same man who stood at the flags. Threshold. Action transforms the actor. Regardless of the outcome, that is what courage buys you. Growth, respect, strength, not just from others, but from yourself. Every act of courage deposits something valuable in the account of your character. It proves to you that you can do hard things, that fear is not your master, that you have more strength than you knew. Are you putting off a decision because fear is whispering? Are you waiting for permission to start something you already believe in? Permission rarely comes from outside. It must be granted from within. The world is not holding its breath, waiting for you to be ready. It's moving forward, creating opportunities for those willing to seize them. You do not need guarantees. You need movement. Even 1 inch forward is more than a mile of hesitation. Progress is not about giant leaps. It's about consistent steps taken despite uncertainty. The man who moves imperfectly is always ahead of the man who waits for perfection. The next step won't always be easy, but the man who acts, even shaking, is always ahead of the man who stands still. Patience builds what time alone cannot. You plant a seed, you water it, you don't shout at it to grow. You trust the process. That's patience. In our culture of instant gratification, where notifications arrive in milliseconds and success stories are condensed into viral moments, we've forgotten one of life's most fundamental truths. The best things take time. Real achievement isn't a sprint. It's a marathon run at a sustainable pace, with faith that each step forward matters, even when the finish line seems impossibly distant. And in life, some of your greatest results won't come quickly. They will test you, delay you, frustrate you, and yet they will come. If you wait wisely, this is where most people stumble. They mistake the silence for failure, the delay for denial. You see, the apparent lack of progress is evidence that their efforts are worthless, that their dreams are foolish, that they should quit while they're behind. But what they don't understand is that growth often happens in the invisible moments, in the quiet spaces between effort and result, where transformation occurs beneath the surface. Patience is not sitting back and doing nothing. It's working steadily with calm faith, while time does its part. It's the blacksmith heating, folding, cooling, shaping day after day until the blade is ready. The blacksmith understands something profound about creation. You cannot rush the fundamental processes that create strength. The metal must be heated to the right temperature, folded at the precise moment, cooled for the proper duration. Each step serves a purpose. In skipping any of them results in weakness, brittleness, failure. The master craftsman knows that true quality emerges from the patient repetition of correct actions, performed with consistent excellence over time. The man who rushes the process ends up with a weak sword, a shallow foundation, a crooked frame. You can't cheat time, but you can partner with it. Consider the oak tree, which grows slowly but stands for centuries, versus the bamboo, which shoots up quickly but bends with every strong wind. The oak's strength comes from its patient development, from roots that dig deep and wood that grows dense. Ring by ring, it doesn't compete with the grass for speed. It competes with storms for endurance. Are you rushing something that needs space to grow? Are you abandoning the work too early because the results aren't here yet? Look honestly at your life. That business you started 3 months ago? Are you already declaring it a failure because it hasn't made you wealthy? That fitness routine you began 6 weeks ago? Are you ready to quit because you don't yet look like the person in the Yeah magazine? That relationship you're building? Are you growing impatient because deep intimacy takes longer than instant attraction? Real progress feels slow. It comes in whispers, not trumpets. But if you keep showing up, if you keep stacking effort upon effort, it builds quietly, unshakably. The compound effect of consistent action is perhaps the most underestimated force in human achievement. Each day's work seems insignificant, but like drops of water that eventually carve through stone, persistence creates results that seem impossible from the perspective of any single moment. The writer who commits to 1 page daily has a novel by year's end. The investor who saves a small amount consistently retires wealthy. The person who reads for 30 minutes each morning becomes remarkably educated over time. Your character, your results, your dreams, they're not overnight work. They are crafted with patience. Character, especially, cannot be rushed. It's forged in the quiet moments when no one is watching, when you choose to do the right thing despite having easier options, when you maintain your standards, even when the immediate rewards aren't apparent. Each choice builds upon the last, creating the foundation of who you become. So wait, but while you wait, work. Let patience be your strength, not your excuse, because when the time is right, what you've built will stand. This is the paradox of patience. It requires both surrender and action, both acceptance and effort. You surrender the timeline while maintaining the work ethic. You accept that results will come in their own time, while ensuring that when they do arrive, you've prepared yourself to receive them. Patient building creates structures that endure achievements, that satisfy, and character that sustains success when it finally arrives. Responsibility is freedom in disguise. You may think that responsibility is a burden, that it weighs you down, but in truth, it is your key to freedom. The moment you stop blaming others, the weather, your past, your boss, or luck, you take back your power. There's a profound shift that happens when you fully embrace this truth. It's the difference between being a victim of circumstances and being the architect of your destiny. Most people resist this shift because they've been conditioned to believe that responsibility means fault, that ownership means guilt, that accountability means punishment. But they've missed the most beautiful part of the equation. Responsibility is not about blame. It's about power. When you own your decisions, your habits, your results, you are no longer a leaf in the wind. You are the captain of the ship. Consider the difference between these two positions. A leaf has no choice in where it lands. It's entirely subject to forces beyond its control. The wind's direction, the seasons' change, the tree's timing. It floats wherever external forces carry it. Beautiful, perhaps, but ultimately powerless. A ship's captain, however, works with the same winds that toss the leaf, using them as tools to reach chosen destinations. The captain doesn't control the weather, but controls the response to it. This is the transformation that occurs when you stop making excuses and start making choices. The same circumstances that once seemed to control your life become raw materials for building the life you want. The difficult childhood becomes the source of your resilience. The failed relationship becomes the teacher of your boundaries. Job loss becomes the push toward your true calling. Too many waste years saying, "If only this hadn't happened. If only someone helped me. If only the times were better." But those words build nothing. Only action does. The "if only" game is seductive because it removes the pressure of having to do something. It's comfortable to believe that your success depends on external factors aligning perfectly, that your happiness requires other people's cooperation, that your progress needs ideal conditions. But comfort is the enemy of growth, and this particular comfort is also the enemy of achievement. Every moment spent crafting the perfect excuse is a moment not spent crafting the imperfect, but real solution. Every hour invested in explaining why something can't be done is an hour not invested in figuring out how it can be done. The energy you spend building cases for your limitations could be building the very capabilities that eliminate those limitations. You are where you are today because of the thoughts you've entertained and the choices you've made. That's not something to be ashamed of. That's something to be empowered by. This realization can be initially uncomfortable, even shocking. It means that your current situation, whatever it is largely the result of your own patterns of thinking and choosing. If you're unhappy, you played a role in creating that unhappiness. If you're unfulfilled, you participated in constructing that emptiness. If you're struggling, your own decisions contributed to that struggle. But here's why this truth is liberating rather than crushing. If you created your current reality, you possess the power to create a different one. You're not a victim of random forces or other people's choices. You're a creator who has been creating unconsciously and can now choose to create consciously. Because if you built your current life, you can build a better one, brick by brick, step by step. The same mind that made decisions leading to your current circumstances can make different decisions, leading to different circumstances. The same hands that took actions, creating your present situation, can take actions, creating a new situation. The same heart that chose certain priorities can choose different priorities. This isn't about perfection or about having complete control over every outcome. It's about recognizing that within any situation you have choices about how to respond, how to interpret, how to move forward. Even when circumstances are genuinely difficult or unfair, you retain the power to choose your response, and that response shapes what happens next. Imagine you're handed a blank journal. No one else is allowed to write in it. Just you. Would you hand it back and say, "Write it for me"? Or would you take it, grab a pen, and begin shaping the story you truly want? Your life is that blank journal. Every day, you're handed fresh pages. You can fill them with complaints about yesterday's entries, or you can write new chapters that move the story in the direction you choose. You can focus on the mistakes from previous pages, or you can use those mistakes as plot points that make the hero's journey more compelling. Most people, when handed this journal, immediately start explaining why they can't write well, why they don't have good ideas, why someone else should help them, why the conditions aren't right for writing. But while they're explaining, the pages remain blank and time keeps turning them. What excuses are still holding you hostage? What truths are you avoiding? Take an honest inventory. Where are you still waiting for permission that only you can give yourself? Where are you still hoping for conditions that may never come? Where are you still blaming circumstances that you could influence or attitudes that you could change? The excuses feel protective, but they're actually prisons. They keep you safe from the risk of trying and failing, but they also keep you safe from the possibility of trying and succeeding. They shield you from disappointment, but they also shield you from achievement. Responsibility may look like pressure, but it is pure opportunity. The day you take full ownership is the day you stop waiting and start creating. This is the moment of transformation. When you stop asking life to accommodate you and start accommodating yourself to life's possibilities. When you stop demanding perfect conditions and start creating something meaningful with imperfect ones. When you stop being a passenger in your own existence and grab the wheel of your own destiny. The pressure you feel when you accept responsibility isn't the weight of burden. It's the weight of possibility. It's the gravitational pull of the life you could build if you stop making excuses and start making progress. Your environment shapes your mind. You are not just shaped by your thoughts, but also by where you spend your time and who you spend it with. The people you let near you, the conversations you allow, the books you read, the habits of your surroundings, all leave fingerprints on your thinking. We like to believe we're independent thinkers, immune to outside influence, masters of our own mental domain. But this belief is both our greatest strength and our most dangerous blind spot. While we carefully monitor what we put into our bodies, we often pay little attention to what we allow into our minds. We examine the quality of our food, but ignore the mental nourishment we consume through our environment, relationships, and daily exposures. Your environment is a silent sculptor working on you every moment, chiseling away at your thoughts, beliefs, and possibilities. Unlike a traditional sculptor who works with hammer and chisel, your environment works with subtlety and repetition. A conversation here and influence there, or repeated exposure to certain attitudes, values, and expectations day by day. These small influences accumulate, shaping your mental landscape as surely as water shapes stone. If you walk through mud, your boots will show it. If you surround yourself with doubt, distraction, and complaint, your mind will absorb it. This isn't merely philosophical. It's how the mind actually works. Your thoughts are constantly adapting to their surroundings. The ideas you encounter most often, the emotions you experience regularly, the conversations you have repeatedly, these literally reshape your mental pattern. When you consistently expose yourself to negative thinking, your mind becomes more efficient at producing those same patterns. When you regularly engage with positive, growth-oriented influences, your mind develops stronger inclinations toward optimism and progress. Consider the person who spends their lunch breaks listening to colleagues complain about their supervisor, their evenings attending gatherings where conversation centers on gossip and grievances, and their leisure time reading publications that emphasize conflict and crisis. They may wonder why they feel anxious, pessimistic, or stuck, not realizing that their environment has been programming those very responses. Many underestimate the silent influence of environment. They say they want to grow, but remain among those who mock ambition. They say they want peace, but live in constant noise. They say they want discipline, but sit where laziness rules. This disconnect between stated desires and chosen environment is one of the most common reasons people fail to achieve their goals. They're fighting a battle on two fronts, trying to develop new habits while remaining in environments that reinforce old ones. It's like trying to eat wholesome meals while keeping your pantry stocked with sweets and treats, or attempting to quit drinking while spending evenings and taverns. The power of environment becomes clear when you examine successful people across different fields. Athletes train in environments filled with other athletes, coaches, and constant reminders of peak performance. Businessmen often work in offices surrounded by other ambitious individuals. Books about commerce and conversations about growth and innovation. Artists create in studios that inspire creativity and surround themselves with other artists who understand and support their vision. They understand intuitively what observation has proven. Your environment doesn't just influence your behavior, it becomes part of your identity. When you're consistently surrounded by people who value growth, when your physical space reflects organization and intentionality, you begin to think in more organized and intentional ways. Imagine tending a garden, but every morning someone tramples over it. Would you keep planting in the same soil, or would you fence it off, protect it? Choose carefully who walks among the rows. Your mind is that garden. Every thought you want to cultivate, every dream you want to nurture, every positive habit you want to grow. These are the seeds you're planting daily. But if your environment is constantly trampling these tender shoots with negativity, distraction, and discouragement, your mental garden will never flourish. The wise gardener doesn't just plant seeds. They create conditions for growth. They choose the right soil, ensure proper lighting, provide adequate water, and protect their plants from pests and harsh weather. They understand that the environment is not separate from the plant. It's an integral part of the plant's ability to thrive. Well, what about your mind? What are you allowing to trample your focus, your confidence, your goals? Look honestly at your current environment. Who are the people you spend the most time with? What are the conversations that fill your days? What books and newspapers do you read? What does your home and workspace communicate about your priorities and values? Are these influences supporting the person you want to become, or are they reinforcing the person you're trying to leave behind? This isn't about judgment, it's about awareness. You might discover that certain relationships, while comfortable or familiar, are actually holding you back. You might realize that your physical environment is cluttered with reminders of past failures rather than inspirations for future success. You might find that your reading diet is heavy on entertainment and light on education. You don't have to shut out the world, but you must shape your environment to support the life you want. That means being deliberate, protective, intentional. This is where many people hesitate. They worry about seeming anti-social or elitist. They feel guilty about distancing themselves from certain influences or upgrading their environment. But there's a crucial difference between being selective and being snobby, between being protective and being close-minded. Being intentional about your environment means making conscious choices about where you spend your time and energy. It means surrounding yourself with people who challenge you to grow, rather than those who enable you to stay small. It means choosing reading material that informs and inspires, rather than that which merely entertains or inflames. It means creating physical spaces that reflect your values and support your goals. Change your surroundings, and you'll begin to think differently. And once you think differently, you'll act differently. And that, my friend, changes everything. This is the cascade effect of environmental design. When you intentionally craft an environment that supports your best self, you make it easier to think thoughts that align with your goals. When your thinking shifts, your actions naturally follow. When your actions change, your results change. When your results change, your confidence and identity evolve. And when your identity evolves, you naturally seek environments that match your new sense of self. The environment you choose today is choosing the person you become tomorrow. Choose wisely. Faith in the invisible builds the impossible. You don't have to see the whole staircase to take the first step, but you do need faith. Not blind hope, but conviction that your work, your effort, your vision matters, even if it's not visible yet. Faith is perhaps the most misunderstood virtue in the vocabulary of achievement. Too often it's confused with wishful thinking or passive waiting, as if faith means sitting back and expecting miracles to unfold without effort. But true faith isn't either passive nor wishful. It's an active working conviction that drives you forward when evidence is scarce and encouragement is absent. The faith required for meaningful achievement is not the faith that ignores reality, but the faith that sees beyond present reality to future possibility. It's the deep knowing that your consistent efforts, even when they seem insignificant, are contributing to something larger than what currently exists. It's the understanding that every worthwhile creation begins in the realm of the invisible and sits court, gradually materializes through sustained action. Every great achievement was invisible at first. The bridge before the steel, the book before the ink, the life you want before the first hard choice. Consider the great cathedrals of Europe, many of which took generations to complete. The master builders who laid the first stones knew they would never see the finished spires reaching toward heaven, yet they worked with meticulous care, faith sustaining them through decades of labor. They understood that their daily efforts were part of something magnificent, even though that magnificence existed only in blueprints and imaginations. The inventor, Thomas Edison, conducted over 1,000 experiments before creating a practical light bulb. Each failure could have been seen as evidence that his vision was impossible. Instead, he viewed each unsuccessful attempt as eliminating one more way that wouldn't work, bringing him closer to the way that would. His faith wasn't in guaranteed success. It was in the value of the process itself. This is the distinction between faith and fantasy. Fantasy expects results without effort, success without struggle, achievement without sacrifice. Faith expects that effort will eventually yield results, that struggle will eventually lead to strength, that sacrifice will eventually produce something worthwhile. Faith doesn't demand immediate gratification. It trusts in eventual fruition. Faith is what keeps the craftsman at work long before anyone sees the final result. It's what gets you out of bed when no one is watching. It's what carries you through when doubt knocks louder than hope. In the early hours of the morning, when the world is still asleep and your work feels insignificant, faith is what pulls you from the comfort of your bed. In the quiet moments when you're laboring on something that no one understands or appreciates, faith is what keeps your hands moving. In the dark periods when progress seems impossible and setbacks feel overwhelming, faith is what whispers that this struggle has meaning. The craftsman, polishing a piece of furniture, doesn't need an audience to do excellent work. The writer crafting a sentence doesn't need immediate praise to choose the right word. The athlete training in the pre-dawn darkness doesn't need spectators to give their best effort. Their faith in the process, in the eventual outcome, in the value of their work itself, sustains them through the long periods of invisible progress. This kind of faith develops character in ways that easy success never could. When you continue working without external validation, you develop internal validation. When you persist without immediate rewards, you strengthen your capacity for delayed gratification. When you maintain your standards without supervision, you build integrity that no external force can shake. Imagine building a cabin deep in the woods. Day after day, you work alone. No one comes by, no one praises, but you believe in what it will become, and so you keep building. This image captures the essence of faith-driven work. There's no audience, no immediate gratification, no external pressure to maintain your standards. There's only you, your vision, and your commitment to bringing that vision into reality. The work itself becomes its own reward, and the process of creation becomes as meaningful as the final creation. In this solitary building, you discover something profound about yourself. You learn whether your motivation comes from within or from others. You discover whether you truly believe in your vision or whether you were merely hoping for approval. You find out if your standards are internal or external, if your persistence is genuine or performative. Do you believe in your path enough to walk it alone? This question cuts to the heart of authentic achievement. Anyone can work hard when others are watching, when praise is likely, when success seems assured. But the test of genuine faith is whether you'll continue when you're the only witness to your effort, when criticism is more likely than praise, when success feels distant and uncertain. Walking your path alone doesn't mean walking it without purpose or direction. It means walking it without needing constant validation from others. It means trusting your inner compass more than external opinion. It means being willing to be misunderstood, to be questioned, to be doubted, while you pursue what you know to be right. There will be days when you feel foolish, when you wonder if it's all in vain. But the real foolishness is abandoning your purpose because others can't see it yet. These moments of doubt are not signs of weakness, they're signs of humanity. Every person who has ever achieved something meaningful has faced these moments when their paths seem questionable, their effort seemed wasted, their vision seemed impossible. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't isn't the absence of doubt, but the response to doubt. The foolish person abandons their purpose when others question it. The wise person uses others' inability to see their vision as fuel for their own conviction. They understand that if everyone could see it, it wouldn't be a vision. It would be obvious. The fact that others can't see it yet doesn't make it less real. It makes it more valuable. Faith does not need applause. It needs action. When you keep showing up, despite no guarantee, you become unstoppable. This is the paradox of faith. It grows stronger not through certainty, but through uncertainty, courageously faced. Each time you take action without guarantee, you strengthen your capacity for faith. Each time you choose to continue, despite lack of evidence, you build evidence of your own character. Each time you show up when you don't feel like it, you prove to yourself that your commitment runs deeper than your emotions. The unstoppable person isn't the one who never faces obstacles. It's the one who has learned to move through obstacles with faith intact. They've discovered that external circumstances don't determine internal commitment. They've learned that their ability to continue doesn't depend on conditions being favorable, but on their faith being active. Because the impossible only becomes real when someone refuses to stop building it. History is written by those who refuse to accept impossible as a final answer. Every breakthrough, every innovation, every transformation began with someone who looked at the impossible and saw it as simply the not yet accomplished. They understood that impossible is not a fact. It's an opinion that changes when someone demonstrates otherwise. The impossible becomes possible one day at a time, one action at a time, one decision at a time. It becomes possible when someone has enough faith to keep building, even when no one else can see the blueprint. It becomes possible when someone refuses to let the opinions of others determine the limits of their own potential. Your faith is your building permit for the impossible. Use it wisely and build something that matters. Silence is a source of strength. In a world that praises constant noise, silence has become a rare kind of power. But you, if you want clarity, true clarity, must learn to sit quietly, think clearly, and act deliberately. We live in an age that mistakes volume for value, chatter for wisdom, and constant motion for progress. The loudest voice often wins the argument, regardless of the strength of its position. The busiest person appears the most important, regardless of the significance of their work. The most talkative individual seems the most confident, regardless of the depth of their understanding. But this is an illusion that serves neither truth nor growth. In this cacophony of competing voices and endless distractions, silence has become not just rare, but revolutionary. To choose silence in a world obsessed with noise is to choose depth over surface, quality over quantity, substance over spectacle. It's to recognize that the most profound truths often emerge not from the loudest proclamations, but from the quietest contemplations. Many speak to fill the space. They rush into noise because they fear what silence might reveal. But silence is not emptiness. It is space for thought, for insight, for truth. The fear of silence runs deeper than most realize. It's not just the discomfort of quiet moments. It's the terror of what those moments might expose. When the external noise subsides, internal voices emerge. When the distractions fade, unresolved thoughts surface. When the busyness stops, the questions we've been avoiding demand answers. People fill conversations with meaningless chatter, not because they have something important to say, but because they're afraid of what might be heard in the pause. They rush from one activity to another, not because each activity is essential, but because stillness might force them to confront uncomfortable truths about their choices, their direction, their authenticity. But what they perceive as emptiness is actually fullness. Silence isn't the absence of sound. It's the presence of possibility. It's the space where thoughts can form without interruption, where insights can emerge without competition, where truth can speak without shouting. In silence, the mind stops reacting and starts reflecting. The heart stops defending and starts discerning. The strongest men you'll ever meet speak the least because they've already considered their words. They don't react to every insult, respond to every challenge, or chase every noise. They choose their response, and that makes them powerful. True strength is not demonstrated by the ability to dominate every conversation, but by the wisdom to enter only the conversations that matter. It's not shown by having an opinion on every topic, but by having thoughtful positions on important matters. It's not proven by quick responses to every provocation, but by measured responses to meaningful challenges. The person who has learned to embrace silence possesses a unique form of power, the power of choice. While others are compelled to react, driven by impulse and emotion, the person comfortable with silence can pause, consider, and choose. This pause, this brief moment of silence between stimulus and response, is where freedom lives. It's where reactive behavior transforms into deliberate action. Consider the difference between a person who immediately responds to every criticism and one who takes time to evaluate whether the criticism deserves a response at all. The first person is controlled by others' words. The second person controls their own responses. The first person's energy is scattered across countless meaningless interactions. The second person's energy is focused on purposeful engagement. Imagine sitting by a quiet stream after a long day. The world slows. Your breath deepens. You see things you missed in the rush. That's the value of silence. This image captures something essential about the restorative power of stillness. By the stream, your nervous system settles into a natural rhythm. Your mind stops racing and starts observing. Your perspective shifts from the frantic urgency of immediate concerns to the broader context of life's deeper pattern. In this state of quiet observation, you notice things that constant motion obscures. You see the interconnections between your choices and their consequences. You recognize patterns in your behavior that busyness had hidden. You identify priorities that noise had confused. You remember values that distraction had obscured. This isn't laziness or escapism. It's essential maintenance for the human spirit. Just as muscles need rest between workouts to grow stronger, the mind needs silence between stimulation to think clearer. Just as soil needs to lie fallow between crops to restore its nutrients, consciousness needs periods of stillness to restore its clarity. When was the last time you sat with your thoughts and really listened? Not to the world, not to distraction, just to you? This question reveals how foreign the concept of intertal listening has become. We've become experts at listening to others' opinions, following others' directions, consuming others' content, but we've lost the ability to tune into our own inner voice, to hear our own wisdom, to trust our own instincts. The practice of listening to yourself is not narcissistic. It's necessary. It's the only way to discover what you truly believe, beneath the layers of what you've been told to believe. It's the only way to identify what you actually want, beyond what you've been convinced you should want. It's the only way to understand what you're called to do, beyond what you've been pressured to do. This inner listening requires more than just quiet time. It requires honest attention. It means sitting with uncomfortable thoughts without immediately trying to fix them. It means acknowledging fears without immediately trying to overcome them. It means recognizing desires without immediately judging them. It means being present to your own experience without immediately trying to change it. The answers you seek often come when the noise fades. That's when your values rise to the surface. Your direction becomes clearer and your actions gain purpose. In the silence, priorities sort themselves naturally. The urgent reveals itself as often unimportant. The important reveals itself as rarely urgent. The essential emerges from the tangle of the optional. What you thought you needed to do separates from what you actually need to do. What you thought you wanted separates from what you actually want. This clarity doesn't come from thinking harder or trying more intensely. It comes from thinking less and being more. It comes from stopping the constant analysis and allowing natural wisdom to surface. It comes from trusting that beneath the noise of external demands and internal anxieties, there exists a deeper knowing that can guide you if you're quiet enough to hear it. Values that have been buried under social expectations begin to resurface. Dreams that have been silenced by practical concerns begin to speak again. Convictions that have been weakened by others' doubts begin to strengthen. The person you truly are begins to emerge from beneath the person you've been told to be. Don't fear silence. Enter it. Protect it. Within it lies strength, vision, and calm. The invitation is not to escape the world, but to engage with it more skillfully. The goal is not to avoid noise forever, but to choose when to engage with it and when to step away from it. The purpose is not to become a hermit, but to become a person who acts from clarity rather than confusion, from purpose rather than pressure, from wisdom rather than impulse. Make silence your ally, not your enemy. Create spaces of quiet in your day, in your week, in your life. Protect these spaces as you would protect anything valuable. Use them not as escape from living, but as preparation for living well. In the sanctuary of stillness, you'll find not emptiness, but fullness. The fullness of your own authentic self, waiting to guide you toward the life you're meant to live. Time is the only true wealth. You can rebuild a business, you can earn back lost money, but time, once it's spent, it's gone. This truth sits at the heart of every meaningful decision you'll ever make. Money can be replaced, possessions can be repurchased, opportunities can resurface, relationships can be rebuilt, but the hours you spend today will never return. The minutes you use right now are gone forever, joined to the irreversible flow of moments that make up your existence. Understanding this reality changes everything. It transforms how you view your daily choices, your commitments, your relationships, and your goals. It shifts your perspective from abundance to scarcity regarding time, while simultaneously revealing abundance in what truly matters. When you grasp that time is your most precious resource, you begin to treat it with the reverence it deserves. That's why you must treat your time like gold dust, rare, valuable, and worth protecting. Gold dust doesn't get scattered carelessly. It doesn't get given away to anyone who asks. It doesn't get wasted on trivial purchases. Every grain is considered, every portion is measured, every use is deliberate. This is exactly how you should approach your time, not as an endless resource to be spent freely, but as a finite treasure to be invested wisely. The analogy runs deeper than mere value. Gold dust is pure in its composition, concentrated in its worth. Your time, when used well, should be similarly pure and concentrated. Each hour should be focused. Each activity should serve a purpose. Each commitment should align with your deeper values and goals. Too many let time slip through their fingers like sand. They say yes to things that don't matter. They wait for better timing that never comes. They treat hours like pennies instead of currency. The tragedy of wasted time is not just in its loss, but in its invisibility. When you waste money, you notice it immediately. Your wallet is lighter, your bank account is smaller, but when you waste time, the loss is subtle, almost imperceptible. Hours drift by in meaningless conversations, pointless activities, mindless entertainment. You don't feel poorer immediately, but you are profoundly so. This invisibility makes time's theft particularly insidious. It's easy to say yes to requests that seem small but accumulate into significant loss. It's tempting to wait for perfect conditions that never arrive while workable conditions pass by, unused. It's comfortable to treat time as abundant because the depletion happens gradually, like water slowly draining from a vessel with an almost invisible leak. The person who treats hours like pennies will find themselves time poor, despite having the same 24 hours as everyone else. They'll wonder why they never seem to have enough time for what matters while having spent countless hours on what doesn't. They'll feel busy, but unproductive, active, but directionless, engaged, but unfulfilled. But you, if you want to win, you must become rich in how you spend time. That means saying no more often. That means spending minutes like investments. Asking, will this give me a return in peace, growth, joy, or purpose? Becoming rich in how you spend time is fundamentally different from becoming rich in how much time you have. Everyone has the same allotment of hours each day, but not everyone uses those hours with equal wisdom. The difference between those who accomplish remarkable things and those who struggle to achieve their basic goals often lies not in talent or luck, but in how they invest their time. This investment mindset transforms your relationship with time. Instead of asking, how can I fill this hour? You ask, how can I invest this hour? Instead of wondering, what should I do now? You wonder, what would be the highest value use of this moment? Instead of drifting through your day, you navigate it with intention. The discipline of saying no becomes essential. Every yes to something unimportant is a no to something important. Every hour spent on activities that don't serve your goals is an hour not spent on activities that do. Learning to decline requests, invitations, and opportunities that don't align with your priorities isn't selfishness, it's stewardship of your most precious resource. Imagine walking into a shop where every item costs 1 hour of your life. Would you still buy everything you do? This thought experiment reveals the true cost of your choices. That television program that costs 3 hours of your evening, would you purchase it if you had to trade 3 literal hours of your life? That social gathering that requires 4 hours of your weekend, would you attend if those 4 hours were visibly deducted from your remaining time on Earth? The metaphor works because it's not really a metaphor. Every hour you spend on something is an hour of your life that you're trading for that experience. The question is whether you're making conscious trades or unconscious ones, whether you're getting good value for your investment or poor value. When you view your time through this lens, certain activities lose their appeal while others gain importance. Mindless entertainment feels expensive when priced in life hours. Meaningful conversations feel like bargains. Skill development appears as high-yield investments. Rest and reflection become necessary maintenance rather than optional luxuries. Your time is your life. Guard it. Spend it wisely. Place it where it builds something real. Skills, relationships, rest, purpose. This isn't about becoming miserly with your time or eliminating all spontaneity and pleasure from your life. It's about being intentional with your choices, deliberate with your commitments, and strategic with your investments. It's about recognizing that every hour spent building skills is an hour invested in your future capacity. Every hour spent nurturing relationships is an hour invested in your happiness and support system. Every hour spent in genuine rest is an hour invested in your health and longevity. Every hour spent pursuing purpose is an hour invested in your fulfillment and meaning. The person who guards their time isn't selfish, they're responsible. They understand that by protecting their time, they're protecting their ability to contribute meaningfully to the world. They realize that by spending time wisely, they're modeling good stewardship for others. They recognize that by being intentional with their hours, they're more present and valuable in the time they do share. You'll never regret using time well, but you will regret wasting it. This is one of life's most reliable truths. At the end of your days, you won't wish you had spent more time in meaningless activities, more hours in mindless entertainment, more minutes in purposeless pursuits. You'll wish you had been more intentional, more focused, more deliberate with the precious hours you were given. The regret that comes from wasted time is particularly sharp because it's irreversible. You can't go back and reclaim those hours, can't replay those moments, can't undo those choices. The time is gone, and with it, the opportunities it might have created. What would your day look like if every hour was accounted for? If every action aligned with the man or woman you want to become? This question invites you to reimagine your daily existence, not as a series of random events and reactions, but as a carefully composed symphony, where each note serves the greater composition, not as a collection of separate moments, but as a unified story where each scene builds toward the climax you're creating. When every hour is accounted for, no space for meaningless worry, no room for activities that don't serve your growth or well-being. When every action aligns with your best self, your days become coherent, your weeks become productive, your months become transformative. When you master your time, you master your future. Time mastery is life mastery. When you learn to invest your hours wisely, you create the future you want, rather than stumbling into the future that happens to you. When you become intentional with your minutes, you build the skills, relationships, and experiences that compound into extraordinary outcomes. When you treat your time as the precious resource it is, you discover that you have more power over your destiny than you ever imagined. Your future is being created right now, in this moment, with how you choose to spend your time. Choose wisely. Remember, challenges will come, and the world won't always slow down, but you don't have to be swept away by the chaos. By mastering your mindset, You gain the power to stay calm, think clearly, and move forward with unshakable confidence. This isn't about perfection. It's about progress, resilience, and inner strength. Carry this truth with you. Your mindset is everything. Protect it, train it, and let it guide you through anything life throws your way. You got this.